In my Capital Journal column this week, I talk about how American allies around the world are under some extraordinary stress right now, and why this is particularly relevant at a moment when there's a new administration in power in Washington, the Trump administration, that raised some questions about America's dedication to the traditional alliances in Europe and in Asia. Three different theaters of stress around the world that I point to. One in Europe comes from Russia, basically both explicitly and implicitly intimidating American allies in that region. That starts with the open intimidation of Ukraine, but it includes some more implicit or subtle intimidation in the form of attempts to influence elections in Europe, much as the Russians are accused of attempting to influence the American election in 2016, and some nuclear brinksmanship as well, as the Russians have moved into Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave near Poland. There's some mid-range missiles that are capable of carrying nuclear weapons. In Asia, you similarly have the Chinese government with its attempts to build new islands and claim more territory in the South China Sea, intimidating the Philippines and Vietnam, while North Korea intimidates South Korea and Japan with its nuclear weapons threats and missile threats that continue pretty much unabated right now, and the Chinese government that won't really say what it's going to do to contain the North Koreans. Meantime, in the Middle East, the Islamic State is openly questioning the legitimacy of a whole series of American Arab allies in Egypt, in Jordan, and in the Persian Gulf, the Saudi Arabians, to say nothing of the Iraqi government the U.S. has spent billions and billions of dollars to support. The common thread in all these threats is that they basically are an attempt to undermine the existing state system in Asia and in Europe and in the Middle East. This is all relevant because it comes at a time when, as I said, the Trump administration's fealty to traditional alliances has been questioned, and the president has said some things during the campaign and since being inaugurated that raise questions of how dedicated the U.S. is to alliances like NATO or the traditional security alliances in Asia. The good news, I suppose, if you're concerned about these alliances, is that things that the president has done and that his administration is doing now are walking back some of that campaign rhetoric on alliances. The president has said just last week, for example, I'm not an isolationist and I am committed to supporting NATO. His Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, has been in Asia trying to reassure South Korea and Japan and confronting the Chinese to some extent with the problems in that region. And Defense Secretary Jim Mattis has also gone to Asia to reassure allies and went to a security conference in Munich to assure European allies on the same way that there's a commitment to NATO and to collective security in Europe. So I think one of the problems that the administration confronts is doubts about its commitments to the alliances. At the same time, it is taking steps to slowly reassure allies that those traditional American commitments haven't gone away simply because Donald Trump is now the president.